He took a cheap shot at the Deathworld cadet, then surgeons rushed to save what was left. The technician pulled the transparent torque seal tight across Pexarin's powered gauntlet and pressed both ends flat with his thumb. "Break that," he said, "and I assume you open the governor." Pexa flexed her 3 long fingers inside the armored frame. Servos whispered along her wrist. The gauntlet amplified the motion until the black composite digits closed with enough force to deform a boarding hatch. "I know what a seal means. Every cadet says that." Across the equipment bay, Bram Keel laughed. The human was sitting on an ammunition crate, while another technician calibrated his suit. He looked disappointingly ordinary for someone born on a world that Academy briefings insisted on calling a Deathworld. Bram was neither enormous nor particularly intimidating. He was shorter than most saloon cadets, broad through the shoulders, with dark cropped hair and the compact build common among humans from high-gravity settlements. His boarding scores were good without being exceptional. His marksmanship was respectable. His zero-gravity maneuvering ranked somewhere in the middle of the class. He had lost 2 sanctioned sparring matches during the voyage. That fact mattered greatly to Coral Dask. Coral stood 3 stations away, allowing a technician to inspect his own powered gauntlet with visible impatience. "Again," he demanded. "Again," the technician said. "The diagnostic already passed." "The diagnostic confirms the drive system operates. I'm confirming that the drive system can stop operating." Coral's crest lifted slightly. "That sounds like the same thing stated twice." Bram looked over. "It is." Coral's eyes narrowed. Nobody had invited the human into the conversation. Bram seemed not to notice. "A motor running correctly tells you it can move," he said. "The release tells you whether you can make it stop moving when something goes wrong." "Something going wrong," Coral replied, "is generally what training prevents." Bram smiled. "Training is what you do because something eventually goes wrong." Pexa suppressed a laugh. Coral heard it anyway. His crest flattened. The technician pulled the transparent seal across Coral's governor housing. "That concludes issue inspection." Coral stared at the tiny strip as though someone had placed a leash on him. The gauntlets were among the most powerful pieces of personal equipment aboard the training ship Caix. Designed for emergency boarding operations, they allowed an operator to force warped hatches, hold damaged pressure doors, cut through wreckage, and stabilize heavy machinery during ship-to-ship rescue. They could also be terrifying weapons, which was why they were not supposed to become weapons. Torque governors limited the maximum powered rotation. Emergency uncouples disconnected the servo frame if resistance exceeded safe parameters. Manual dead switches killed power if an operator lost conscious control. Every safety system existed because the gauntlet was strong enough to injure the person wearing it. Coral considered this proof that the designers lacked confidence. Bram considered it proof that the designers understood machines. The disagreement had been growing for 11 days. Pexa had watched almost all of it. The Caix was not an academy campus. That was partly why Pexa liked it. There were no polished ceremonial halls, no statues of famous admirals, no public rankings displayed beneath giant banners. The ship was old enough that 3 generations of cadets had carved initials into the aft observation frame despite repeated threats from instructors. The deck smelled faintly of lubricant. Bulkheads carried scars from repairs. Every compartment looked as though it had a practical reason for existing. 38 officer candidates from 7 species had been assigned to the voyage. The purpose was simple. Academy training taught theory. Caix taught consequences. A navigation mistake meant someone missed a meal because the exercise ran long. A badly packed emergency kit meant the cadet who packed it later had to use it. A careless maintenance check meant the same cadets slept beside the machinery they had failed to inspect. Bram adapted to that environment almost immediately. Coral hated that he had. The Saloon cadet had arrived with the highest boarding combat evaluation in their intake group. He was fast, exceptionally fast. His species had evolved on a low-gravity world dominated by vertical forests, where acceleration and reach mattered more than mass. Coral's arms were long, his balance superb, and his nervous responses quicker than Pexa's by a humiliating margin. In controlled combat, he was magnificent. He could touch an opponent before they finished deciding how to defend themselves. He could change direction during a leap. He could launch from a wall, rotate in the air, and strike a scoring plate with enough precision to trigger only its center sensor. Bram could do none of those things, which made Coral's increasing obsession with him difficult for Pexa to understand. It began during the first boarding drill. A mock compartment had been damaged by simulated weapons fire. The cadets were ordered to enter, isolate a ruptured conduit, recover 2 training casualties, and open an obstructed hatch. Coral led his team through in 6 minutes. Bram's team took almost 8. Coral had been pleased until the instructor reviewed the results. Coral's team completed the objective faster. Bram's team completed it without damaging any equipment. "You hesitated here," Coral said afterward, pointing at the playback diagram. Bram nodded. Hydraulic line looked wrong. It was still functioning. "Yeah, so you lost time for nothing." Bram drank from his water pouch. "Maybe." Coral waited. Bram apparently considered the conversation complete. 2 days later, the line used in the same training rig began leaking during another team's exercise. Nobody was injured. The incident was ordinary. That almost made it worse. Bram had not predicted catastrophe. He had simply noticed where. Coral started calling him cautious, then slow, then the human safety officer, even though Bram held no such position. Bram found the title funny. That made Coral angrier. The final live boarding exercise was scheduled for the last week of the voyage. Unlike the modular training compartments, the target would be a decommissioned cargo tender drifting beside the Kaix. Its power systems were functional but unreliable. Its corridors were real. Its hatches were real. Its damage had accumulated over decades of actual service. The instructors would control the scenario. The ship would provide the uncertainty. That morning, Pexa found Bram beneath an open equipment locker, replacing a frayed emergency tether. "You know stores will issue another one." "Yep. And yet you are repairing that one." "Also yep. Why?" He pulled the tether taut. "Because I'm holding this one." Pexa waited for something more profound. Nothing came. "You humans are exhausting." "That's what my mother says." She sat beside the locker. Across the bay, Coral was reviewing boarding routes with 2 saloon cadets. "You know he hates you." Bram glanced over. "Coral." "No, the cook." "That makes more sense. I criticized the soup." "I am serious." "So am I." Soup had opinions. Pexa clicked her tongue. Bram finally looked at her. "He doesn't hate me. He absolutely hates you. He hates what he thinks I represent." That sounds suspiciously like hate with extra words. Bram considered this. "Fair." Pexa leaned closer. "He thinks you are making him look weak." "I'm not." "I know." That seemed to surprise him. Pexa continued. "He is still faster than you." "Much." "He is still better in sanctioned combat." "Definitely." "He would probably defeat you in a scoring match." "Probably." Bram smiled. "Thanks for the confidence. I am trying to explain why none of that matters to him anymore." Bram's humor faded slightly. Pexa pointed toward the equipment stations. "He thinks everyone is impressed by you because you stop drills. That'd be a weird thing to admire." "It is not the stopping. It is what happens afterward." Bram said nothing. Pexa had noticed it herself. When Coral completed a difficult maneuver, everyone watched him. When Bram ended an exercise because a coupling looked wrong, people complained. Then the instructors checked. Sometimes Bram was mistaken. That was important. He had aborted one drill because he thought a pressure fitting was overheating. The fitting was fine. Another time, he misread a vibration from a cargo frame and made his entire team wait, while technicians found nothing wrong. He apologized both times. No excuses. No mysterious human infallibility. But when he was right, he had an annoying tendency to be right before anyone else cared. Coral thinks caution is the opposite of courage, Pexa said. Bram returned to the tether. A lot of people do. And what do humans think? Humans don't agree on what to put on pizza. I do not know what that means. Neither do we. She shoved his shoulder. He laughed. Then his expression changed. Across the room, Coral had removed his powered gauntlet from its rack. He was staring at the transparent seal across the governor. His thumb rested against its edge. Bram watched for perhaps 2 seconds. Then Coral noticed. His hand moved away. The live exercise began 6 hours later. Pexa's team entered the tender through a maintenance lock on the ventral side. The first 15 minutes were uneventful. Then the ship reminded them it was real. A pressure door jammed halfway through closing. Coral reached it first. Powered assist. He engaged his gauntlet. The armored fingers clamped around the edge. Servos whined. The door shifted. Bram raised a hand. Stop. Coral ignored him. Dask. The instructor's voice came through the calm. Human called stop, hold. Coral released the controls. The door remained stuck. Bram crouched beside the lower guide. What? Coral demanded. Bram pointed. A metal fragment had lodged beneath the track. The drive can overpower it, Coral said. Probably. Then why stop? Because the door frame is flexing. It is designed to flex. Not there. Coral stared. Remove the obstruction, the instructor ordered. Pexa knelt with a pry tool. The fragment came free. The door slid normally. 30 seconds lost. Nothing dramatic happened. Coral's breathing became louder over the calm. The exercise resumed. They completed the next compartment in record time. Coral took point through the last access corridor. His movement was beautiful, controlled acceleration, clean turns, no wasted motion. Bram followed farther back, carrying the casualty frame. Pexa stayed between them. The final objective required opening the tender's forward emergency hatch. Coral reached it first. The hatch did not respond. He locked his gauntlet onto the manual handle. Pexa watched the torque indicator rise. Bram said, "Limit's coming. I can see it." Then ease off. Coral drove harder. The governor cut power. The gauntlet disengaged with a dull mechanical click. Coral froze. Pexa heard Bram exhale. Again, Coral said, "Don't. The hatch is almost moving. Governor stopped you for a reason. It stopped me because the designers selected a number." Bram shifted the casualty frame onto the deck. "Yeah, usually numbers come from somewhere." Coral turned. "That is your entire philosophy, isn't it?" "My philosophy. Stop, wait, check, ask permission." Bram stared at him. Pexa felt the atmosphere in the corridor change. The instructor spoke. "Cadets remain on objective." Coral released the hatch. "Yes, instructor." Bram said nothing. Pexa eventually found the manual pressure bypass 30 centimeters below the main handle. The hatch opened with almost no force. Coral did not speak for the rest of the exercise. Their team finished second. Back aboard the Kaix, equipment return should have ended the matter. It did not. Coral disappeared before debrief. Pexa found Bram in the auxiliary staging bay, still wearing the lower half of his boarding armor. "You should change. So should you. I am not the one attracting increasingly irrational saloon." Bram dropped his gloves into a locker. "Pexa, I am serious." "So am I." "Then report him." "For what?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Coral had done nothing formally reportable. Yet. Bram leaned against the locker. I'm not starting a disciplinary case because somebody's angry after a bad drill. You did not make him lose. I know. He does not. That's his problem. The staging bay door opened. Coral entered. Pexa's throat tightened. He was still wearing his powered gauntlet. That alone was wrong. Equipment should have been returned. Bram noticed immediately. His eyes moved from Coral's face to the gauntlet, then to the governor housing. Pexa followed his gaze. Something was missing. A tiny detail. Transparent. Almost nothing. The torque seal. Pexa stepped forward. Coral, leave. His voice was flat. She did not. Bram remained beside the locker. Equipment returns aft. I know where equipment return is. Okay. Coral took another step. You embarrassed me. Bram's eyebrows rose. No. You stopped me twice in front of my team. The first time, the door had debris in it. It would have opened. Maybe. The second time, the hatch opened anyway. Using the pressure bypass. You always have an answer. Bram shook his head. No, I usually have questions. Coral's crest lifted. That is worse. Pexa moved between them. Enough. Coral's gaze never left the human. Everyone thinks he is wiser because he is afraid to commit. Bram pushed away from the locker. Coral. What? Take off the gauntlet. Pexa heard it then. Not fear in Bram's voice. Something colder. Professional concern. Coral flexed the powered fingers. The servos answered too quickly. Bram's eyes narrowed. Take it off. Now you are giving orders. No. Bram glanced at the empty seal channel. I'm asking you not to do something stupid. Coral smiled. I already passed every required inspection. With the seal intact, Pexa turned toward the emergency panel. Coral saw the movement. Don't. She stopped. Bram did not. He shifted 1 foot backward, not into a fighting stance. Almost the opposite. He angled his body as though preparing to move away. Coral laughed once. There, finally. Bram's voice dropped. Finally what? You understand. Coral, you are afraid. Bram's shoulders tightened. Yeah. The answer stunned Pexa. Coral seemed almost disappointed. Bram continued. You're wearing powered equipment with the governor housing opened, and you're angry enough to think that proves something. Of course, I'm afraid. The Saloon's face hardened. You make fear sound virtuous. No. Bram slowly raised his empty hands. I'm making it sound informative. Coral moved. There was no warning. No challenge. No formal stance. No agreed contest. One moment, he stood 3 meters away. The next, his powered arm was already coming across Bram's blind side. The cheap shot was brutally fast. Bram saw it late. Too late to step clear. His left forearm came up. The powered gauntlet collided with it hard enough to throw Bram sideways into the equipment rack. Pexa screamed. Coral followed through. That was the moment everything changed. Bram did not punch him. He did not seize Coral's throat. He did not somehow overpower the powered frame. He caught the outer housing of the gauntlet with both hands and turned with it. It was a simple movement, almost ugly. The kind of movement meant not to stop a machine, but to stop standing directly in front of where the machine wanted to go. Bram rotated. Coral's shoulder followed. The gauntlet should have released. It did not. Pexa heard the servo note climb. Bram's eyes widened. Uncouple. Coral tried. Nothing happened. The powered frame continued rotating. What did you do? Bram shouted. Coral's expression changed from rage to confusion. Then terror. The torque motor kept driving. The human let go instantly. Too late. Coral's arm had reached its natural limit. The gauntlet had not. A horrible mechanical crack slammed through the bay. Coral screamed. Pexa hit the emergency cutoff. Nothing. Local circuit. Bram yelled. Pexa ripped open the wall panel. Another crack. Coral dropped to one knee, trapped by his own arm, as the powered frame continued trying to complete a movement the body inside it could no longer follow. Bram lunged for the rear disconnect cable. Release is blocked. What? He blocked the release. Coral screamed again. Pexa found the correct breaker. She drove both palms against it. Power vanished. The gauntlet stopped. Silence lasted less than a second. Then Bram was on the deck beside Coral. Don't move him. Coral's arm lay at an angle that made Pexa's stomach contract. Bram's own left forearm was already swelling where the first strike had landed. He ignored it. Medical emergency, auxiliary staging bay, Pexa shouted into the wall calm. Powered equipment trauma, severe limb injury. Coral made a broken sound. Bram knelt close enough to be heard. Don't look at it. You, look at me. Coral tried. His breathing was too fast. Stay awake. You did. I know what you think happened. Stay awake anyway. Boots thundered outside. The medical doors burst open. 3 medics entered with a suspension litter, followed immediately by a trauma surgeon still fastening the collar of her sterile field suit. She looked at Coral's arm once. Her face changed. Operating theater now. Another medic scanned the limb. Vascular flow unstable. Immobilize above the shoulder. Do not remove the gauntlet here. Doctor, the frame is locked around the limb. Then the frame goes into surgery with him. Coral's eyes rolled toward Bram. MIs. The surgeon cut him off. We are going to save as much function as we can. As much. Pexa understood the wording. So did Coral. His face went gray. The medics lifted him. Bram moved back. His injured arm hung lower now. A medic pointed at him. You too. I'm fine. You are visibly not. After him. He is going to surgery. You are coming with me. Bram looked at Pexa. For the first time since the attack, his composure cracked. Not because of his arm. Tell them not to power the gauntlet during removal. The surgeon paused. Bram pointed with his good hand. Governors bypassed. Emergency uncouples physically locked. If they energize it to reverse the servo, make sure they mechanically isolate the drive first. The surgeon's stare sharpened. You know that. I saw the housing. She turned toward her team. You heard him. Add equipment isolation to surgical prep. Then they were gone. Surgeons rushed Coral toward the medical deck, with the powered gauntlet still attached to what was left of the arm inside it. Pexa stood in the suddenly quiet staging bay. On the deck near her boot lay a curled strip of transparent material. The broken torque seal. The surgery lasted 5 hours. Bram spent 40 minutes in treatment. His forearm was badly bruised, but not fractured. He left with a compression sleeve, strict activity restrictions, and an order not to pretend swelling was a personality trait. Pexa found him sitting alone in the observation blister. Stars moved slowly beyond the glass. Coral is alive, she said. Bram nodded. I heard. They saved the arm. He looked at her. Mostly. Pexa sat. The surgeons had managed to preserve circulation and reconstruct the major structural damage. Full strength was unlikely to return soon. Fine control remained uncertain. Months of rehabilitation were expected. Possibly longer. Coral would not be wearing powered boarding equipment again for a very long time. Bram stared at the stars. Pexa studied his face. You could say it. Say what? That he did it to himself. Bram rubbed his uninjured hand over his knee. He did. You sound unhappy about being right. I wasn't right. You warned him. That doesn't make what happened good. Pexa looked down. After a while she said, everyone thinks you broke his arm. Bram snorted softly. Of course they do. Some think you used a human combat technique. I did. Her head snapped toward him. He smiled tiredly. Move out of the way of force. That is a combat technique. It's also a falling technique, and a workplace technique, and a common sense technique. So what happened? I don't know all of it. You were there. I know what I felt. He held up his swollen arm. He hit hard. I turned because staying square would have been worse. When I caught the housing, I expected the gauntlet to trip. It didn't. No, because he removed the governor. Governor affects maximum drive. It shouldn't disable the uncouple. Pexa slowly reached into her pocket. She placed the transparent fragment on the table between them. Bram stared at it, found it beside the breaker. He picked it up. The strip was curled from where it had been peeled away. Not torn during the accident. Removed earlier. Bram put it back. Give that to Chief Soren. You do not want it. Why would I want it? Evidence. It's not my investigation. Pexa leaned back. You are infuriating. I've been told. Chief Equipment Officer Soren did not need security footage. He needed the gauntlet. The damaged frame arrived from the surgical theater, sealed in a transparent evidence case. Pexa was present because she had witnessed the attack. Bram was present because Soren needed to understand his contact with the mechanism. Captain Veylan attended because the incident had occurred aboard his ship. Nobody held a tribunal. Nobody sat beneath theatrical lights. There were no spectators. There was only a scarred engineering table, 4 tired officers, 2 cadets, and 1 ruined powered gauntlet. Soren opened the governor housing. Bypass bridge. The captain's jaw tightened. Deliberate. Yes. Soren removed a tiny conductive clip. Not field damage. Somebody installed this. He turned the gauntlet. Emergency uncouple next. The inspection took longer. When Soren finally exposed the release assembly, he stopped. Pexa saw the answer in his face. What? The captain asked. Soren lifted a small locking pin with forceps. This does not belong here. Bram closed his eyes. Pexa understood. He blocked it. Soren nodded. The uncouple is spring-biased towards separation. This pin physically prevents the frame from disengaging. Captain Veylan stared at the device. Why would anyone do that? Soren looked toward Bram. The human answered reluctantly. Because emergency releases can trigger under sudden resistance. So, if you're trying to drive harder than the governor allows, you don't want the frame dropping power when something pushes back. Pexa felt cold. Coral had not merely removed one limitation. He had removed the protection behind it. Soren continued. Dead switch. Functional. Thermal cutout. Functional. Torque governor. Deliberately bypassed. Emergency uncouple. Deliberately blocked. So the gauntlet did not fail, Captain Veylan said. No. Soren looked at the ruined frame. It obeyed. Nobody spoke. That word settled over the table harder than an accusation. It obeyed. Coral had wanted maximum force. He had gotten it. Bram shifted. Captain Veylan looked at him. Cadet Keel, describe your action. Bram did. Simply. Coral attacked. Bram saw the strike too late to evade. He protected his head with his forearm. The impact moved him into the equipment rack. Coral continued forward. Bram caught the housing and rotated away from the strike path. He expected resistance to trip the safety system. It did not. He released as soon as he realized the servo continued driving. That was all. No counter-strike. No captain. No joint lock. No. No attempt to reverse the limb. No. Soren placed a diagram on the table. The injury was created by powered continuation after human anatomical range was exhausted. Pexa frowned. Human. Selun, Soren corrected. Apologies operator anatomical range. Bram almost smiled. Soren pointed to the model. Keel's movement redirected the strike. Under normal configuration, this lateral resistance would have triggered the uncouple. He tapped the locking pin. This prevented that. Then the bypass bridge. This allowed the motor to continue above the standard safety limit. Captain Valand's expression became grim. So Dask created a machine that could not safely stop, then used it to attack another cadet. Yes. Pexa looked at Bram. He was staring at the transparent torque seal lying beside the opened housing. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just tired. Coral woke the next morning. Pexa did not visit immediately. Bram did. She learned that later from a nurse. The human stayed for less than 4 minutes. Nobody knew what they said. Pexa never asked. The official response aboard the Kaix was almost painfully ordinary. Coral was removed from the remainder of the cruise and transferred to a rehabilitation facility once stable. The Academy opened a disciplinary case. Bram provided a statement. Pexa provided hers. Chief Soren submitted the equipment report. That was it. No new doctrine was announced. No species was declared superior. The Academy did not redesign powered gauntlets because the gauntlet had already contained the necessary protections. The rules had not failed. The operator had deliberately defeated them. That distinction bothered Pexa for days. She had expected a revelation. Something large, something distinctly human. Instead, she received an uncomfortable truth. Bram had not survived because he possessed secret Deathworld bones. He had not defeated Coral with hidden martial mastery. The human's remarkable act had been almost embarrassingly simple. He had respected the possibility of failure before failure occurred. Coral had treated every limit as an insult. Bram treated limits as information. The difference had looked philosophical right up until machinery made it physical. 3 days later, the remaining cadets prepared for their final powered equipment exercise. Pexa stood at Station 4. A technician fitted the gauntlet around her forearm. Servo check. Green. Grip response. Green. Dead switch. Green. Emergency uncouple. Green. Torque governor. Green. The technician reached for the transparent seal. Pexa stopped him. I'll do it. He raised an eyebrow. She took the strip. Across the bay, Bram sat on a bench wearing only light-duty equipment. His injured arm remained inside a compression sleeve, and medical staff had prohibited powered gauntlet use until the bruising resolved. He noticed Pexa looking. What? She ignored him. With careful fingers, she laid the transparent seal across the governor housing. Pressed one side. Pulled it tight. Pressed the other. Then she tested the emergency uncouple again. Click. The frames separated cleanly. She reset it. Bram watched. Pexa lifted the sealed gauntlet. You are not going to say anything. Wasn't planning to. Not even something irritating about safety. I figured the sticker covered it. She stared at him. He grinned. Pexa shook her head and turned toward the boarding lock. Around her, the surviving class finished checking their own equipment. Nobody laughed at the seals now. Nobody treated the release tests as wasted time. No instructor had ordered that change. No new regulation required it. The cadets had simply begun checking for themselves. Pexa flexed the armored fingers once. The powered gauntlet closed with immense force, then opened when she told it to. That second part suddenly seemed more important. The locked doors slid apart. Pexa stepped toward the training craft with a fresh transparent torque seal shining across her wrist. And behind her, exactly where it belonged, the emergency release remained untouched.